and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest, well, she's a radio DJ, a TV presenter. She has her own podcast called Soundtracking With, but I can't finish that because then you'll know her name. She's a mother to two boys as well. It is Edith Bowman. Hello.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
I'm
so
good.
nice to see you as well.
Do you know what? I've got you full on my screen, so it's literally like you are here.
Same. It's lovely. Love it. You look very well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As do you.
Thanks. Just had a bath.
Did you? Well, I had to wash my hair in the sink because we're potty training at the moment, the youngest, the third one. And the poo situation didn't go very well. And he managed to, you know, however much you say, don't touch it, he touched it and it was on his hand. And then the next time I looked, it wasn't there, but he flicked it. And I didn't know where he'd flicked it. And then I moved my hair out of the way and I was like, oh, what's that? Oh, great.
You can just smell it, can't you? You've got that. It's so weird. We just got a dog about 5 months ago. Not even that, 4 months ago. And it was almost like that immediate thing, similarly with the dog, that you know the smell of your own child's kind of wee and poo and farts.
Yeah.
And so, like, immediately I know that, like, I know the smell of the dog's poo. So even when I just go in the garden, I can tell if he's, you know, it's like, oh no, he's done a sneaky one. I need to find it. Kind of, it's hilarious. It's weird, isn't it?
That's also a little bit like pregnancy nose, because I think when you're pregnant, your nose is just so tuned in, and I don't think you lose it. And once that smell is up your nose, it's really hard to let it go.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I like where we started.
I mean, starting me to go on. It's only you started it. You said you had a shower and it reminded me of wash of hair in the sink tonight.
Oh, it's such a luxury having a shower. It's like, have I showered today? What day is it? Oh, God, I really should. So,
if we get to 10 o'clock in the morning and neither of us have had showers, we're like, oh, it's a bit too late now, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. I've now started loving having a shower before I go to bed. That's my new thing. Because it's kind of like there's too much going on in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I'm not going to add another thing in there to stress me. No one's going to see me. I'm not going anywhere. So I may as well make...
You can make it like most of that time as well. You don't have to worry about, I've got to get out because they've got to be on Teams in a minute. And if I'm not there, they won't go on, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So then now it's also quite a nice way to just decompress at night.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, you know, a shower or eat, or, you know, or like I did tonight, have a wee bath. Oh, lush.
Bath.
I know.
Actually,
with
like
oil in it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think I did 10 minutes.
Are you like me? Do you get in there and go, oh yeah, this is really nice, and then get a bit bored?
I get too hot. Can you sweat in a bath? Because I'm sure I do. It's just kind of weird.
I do. I definitely do that. Now, Edith, I would love to know, where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
So I grew up in a little fishing village in Scotland called Anstruther, and it's on the east coast. It's about an hour north of Edinburgh and just south of Dundee. And I grew up with my large family. So my mum is one of 7 girls,
Right.
all beginning with E. I wasn't named after them. Weirdly, I was named after my dad's mum. And my granddad and my nana started this little B&B, like, and then over the years it grew into a hotel. And so that was the environment that I grew up in. You know, my mum and 4 of her sisters and their siblings, they all worked in it and ran it. So it was proper family business. And it was just this amazing kind of bustling, just kind of thing that I grew up in. It was never a dull moment, and it had its good points and it had its bad points. You know, in terms of my mum and dad were always working. You know, it was really busy. So, you know, summer holidays were the busiest time for them. So, you know, we'd be kind of kicked out the door and you just go off and hang out with your mates, then come back for tea. You know, it's that kind of thing. But then they would always make sure that we had, you know, they worked their arses off, but we would always have a nice holiday every year. And so that was our kind of, you know, they'd have a couple of days off during the week and stuff, but weekends they were always working. So we'd always have these really nice holidays. You know, not extravagant, just kind of, you know, Portugal. We did go to America, I think, twice in my childhood, but just proper family holidays where we kind of did everything that we wanted to do. But with them working at weekends, I spent all my weekends from the age of 0 till about 11, 12. And my granddad, my dad's dad, and he lived like a mile along the road in a little village called Pittenweem, another little fishing village. And so he was like a third parent really to me. And there's kind of a sort of folklore that he went through 2 sets of tires on my mum's Silver Cross pram because he walked me so much as a baby.
Ah.
Yeah, and we had a really special bond, I think, as well, because he lost my nana in childbirth. Actually, she died giving birth to my aunt. My dad was only 3, and so I was the first grandchild, and so we had this immediate kind of. He had this thing, that he could transfer that love onto almost in a way. So we had a very, very special bond, and I have some just wonderful memories of spending time with him, and yeah, most weekends. So it was interesting. It was a kind of slightly unconventional childhood. We never had Christmases in the way that everybody had Christmases
Yeah.
because the hotel was open and we'd serve Christmas lunches. And so, we'd serve 300 Christmas lunches and then we'd all sit down, like all the family, all the staff would all sit down. Someone would dress up as Father Christmas. So it was always a bit of a party kind of thing going on. There was always something going on, whether it be a street party, for the royal wedding or a christening or a dinner dance or a jazz band, or it was never a dull moment.
And your mum was relatively young as well when she had you.
Yeah, she had me at 19. So I've got this brilliant picture of me singing her happy birthday at her 21st in my nightie. And yeah, she was young in years, but old in her kind of, her she was always older than her years. I remember my nana talking about that sort of, she was just this little old soul, my mum.
Yeah.
And I think because she spent so much time in the hotel, in that environment, and her older sisters as well. And then she was always kind of looking after her younger sisters. Mum's right in the middle of everybody. She's
Right.
got 3 either side of her. So, but yeah, and so we've always had a really special bond because she was so young when she had me. We had our ups and downs. I was a terrible teenager.
Were you?
Yeah, left home once. Just got on the bus.
Did you? How old were you?
15, I think.
Right.
I just kind of, that thing where no one understands me. I can't be in this house anymore. You just can't let me do anything, which was rubbish because they did kind of let me do whatever I wanted.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because in hindsight, you can look at what you don't let your kids do and what kids just can't do now, and kind of go, actually, we had free reign.
Totally. Like what I was saying about, during the summer, I would have breakfast with my folks and then I would be out the house.
Yeah.
They would know where I was. They just hope that I'd come back something at tea time. There's no mobile phones and all that kind of stuff. It was just, yeah, it's bonkers to think that now. But it was really funny because I got on the bus and my dad, he knew where I was going. I was going to a friend's who lived like 4 or 5 villages along. And so the bus obviously takes ages weaving through all these villages. And when I got to the end, my dad was already waiting for me. It's hilarious. And I'd kind of, I'd let steam off in the bus almost. So by the time he picked me up, it was like, I was fine. I said my sorries. Tail between my legs.
Did you ever think about having a family of your own before you met Tom?
Yeah, I mean, because of this large family that I grew up in, we always had kids around. So, I've got like 20 cousins and we all grew up together. So we'd all be running around this hotel, and in the function suite, most of us would go there for lunch. We'd walk up to the hotel for lunch when we were at school, and then disperse to our various, schools after that. And then sometimes after school, if there was things going on at the hotel, and we were waiting for parents to kind of finish work, and we'd go in the function suite and take tablecloths off the tables and use them as the biggest and the strongest. We'd have to hold a corner of the tablecloth while the rest of us sat in it, and they'd like spin us around the dance floor on this kind of like magic carpet thing. But so we were always around kids, and I was looking after cousins from a really early age, and my brother is 7 years younger than me as well. So I looked after him a lot, actually, kind of growing up. And so I had this kind of natural, I guess, instinct with kids, really. And then when my nephew was born, he's going to be 18 this month. And that was an amazing feeling of kind of this little thing that was a blood relative, my brother's kid, the closest thing I had to like my own kid, and it was a bond that was really hard to put words to, really. And I've got such a lovely relationship with Kerry. He's amazing, amazing young man, and that was just I couldn't spend enough time with him. It was, I'd come up from London specially just to hang out with him, sort of thing, and take him for walks when he was a baby, and we've been on loads of holidays together and things like that. And it's a really amazing bond. And then, I kind of thought I wanted to have kids, and then I didn't really think about it for quite a long time, to be honest, because there was just so much kind of going on. And then we had, I mean, to be totally honest, we hadn't planned Rudy. It was kind of like a happy accident. And then he came along, and it was just this amazing new world that was, kind of opened up to us. And
do you think had you have planned things, that it would be that thing of constantly kind of going, well, I can't do it now because I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
And we can overthink things, and there's never a right time.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think also the flip of that as well is almost kind of like making too many plans. You can be really disappointed as well. I think you just almost have to just kind of take your foot off the pedal and just see what happens, almost, in a way, I think sometimes, because I've had friends who've had, really not very nice experiences with desperately trying to have kids. We must have 2 kids, and it not working out like that for them. And I think sometimes you can put too much pressure on that side of things, and there's so much external pressure on that side of things, I think, as well. It's always that thing of, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? And then even like after having 2 boys, it's like, oh, you're going to try again for a girl? And it's like, no, thanks very much. Because, it's like, I mean, I wouldn't like to have one of me when I was a teenager, for a start. So it's kind of like, but it's so weird, this kind of society's expectations of, couples, whether they be same-sex couples or heterosexual couples. It's almost kind of like there is a stage that you have to follow, and it's so weird. And even when we had Rudy, and we were like, someone's like, oh, you're gonna get married now? And it's like, well, no, I don't want to get married as a knee-jerk reaction to having a kid. We love this little thing that we're learning how to look after, scared about every corner we turn. And then weirdly, it was after we had Spike that, not long after we had him, Tom, in the middle of the night, and we kind of joked about getting married after our 10th anniversary of being together. And then we had Spike a couple of years before that. And in the middle of the night, Tom just turned around and went, I think we should get married. And I think weirdly, it was a kind of, having this second kid, I think for him, it was a case of, I feel like I need to cement this in some way, or I need to, I don't know. I never really asked him why, to be honest. But then, we got married within 6 months of that sort of thing. Spike was like, he was born in the February, and we got married in the December, and he had this little suit, and he looked like a little baby Winston Churchill. He was so chunky. He was amazing. But yeah, I mean, I think that, but weirdly with Spike, he wasn't planned, but it was kind of like, shall we try for another one?
Yeah.
And we kind of went, well, let's see what happens. And I was really fortunate that I got pregnant so quick after that, actually.
Going back to your first pregnancy with Rudy, what was that like, finding out you were pregnant when you weren't expecting it?
Oh, I was terrified. I mean, I cried. I mean, I remember Tom was on tour, and I remember phoning him and being in tears, and he thought I was about to tell him I had some kind of terminal disease or illness or something. But I was terrified. My friend Gemma, I think I did like 8 pregnancy tests as well. My friend Gemma I was like, please, can you bring another one round just to double check something?
Did you get the lines ones, or the ones
funny.
that just say pregnant, not pregnant?
I think it was a line one.
See, they confuse me. I can't be doing with it.
Yeah, totally. And then because I've got this heart thing, so I've got a heart murmur. It means I've got a bicuspid valve instead of a tricuspid valve. And so my doctor was like, look, I just need you to go and get an early scan, earlier than you would normally go. And Rudy was actually a double pregnancy. So yeah, but they said really early on that one of the fetuses had a really his heartbeat was really strong, and the other ones was kind of quite weak. And they were like, "Look, it's very unlikely that this one is going to survive." And the doctor was amazing about it because he's actually it was a nurse actually, and she said, "Look, you wouldn't believe the amount of pregnancies that actually start off as twin pregnancies, but because most people don't come for scans this early, they would never know."
I was
because
one.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But it was like, I mean, I would never have known as well because there was no clear signs that I'd lost, it wasn't really a baby, it was so early, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we told Rudy about it and stuff, and we joked about it as well when I was about it being like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, twins sort of thing. It was quite quick from being told that to then going for the next scan and going, yeah, there's just one heartbeat sort of thing. And then it's just being excited and trying to work out what you do until this thing arrives, hopefully, healthy and all that kind of thing.
Did you have to get monitored more because of your heart?
Yeah, so I kind of had to get, I've got a heart specialist that I go to, and she kind of does a full set of kind of scans and things on me every year. And so my doctor had kind of made the decision for me early on that he said, look, one of the things that puts your heart under the most strain is natural childbirth. So I would feel more comfortable with making the decision that you have a C-section, so because we can have that choice to not put your heart under unnecessary strain. So I was like, look, I'm fine. I'm not kind of, the main thing is that we're both healthy and we're both fine after this. And I didn't really think about it, to be honest. I wasn't kind of one of these people who felt like I'd lost some kind of experience of connecting with my child from not, and it's like, it's absolute bollocks. And sorry for swearing.
No.
What kind of swearing? I'm Scottish. But I think that there is a massive stigma on that. And I experienced it when whatever the conversation is, and the person that you're talking to discovers that you had a C-section. I had two. And they go, and they almost kind of go, oh. And you're like,
really?
Sorry? Yeah. You don't know my situation. You don't know why that decision was made. It might have been an emergency situation and stuff. And, I had amazing support in the whole leading up to it. And the experience was amazing. Tom made a playlist and we had that on in the theatre, and he was nearly sick, and he had a harder time than me. I was like, could you just turn the music up a bit, please?
So I can block him out.
So funny. And yeah, so that was a kind of, that was the advice we were given. So it's like, you know what you're talking about. So I'm going to take that.
Well, there is that weird thing, isn't there? I think it has weirdly become this thing where people forget that it's major abdominal surgery. It's not a walk in the park. It's, and I think when it gets nicknames like the sunroof or, things like that, it's like
too posh to push.
Yeah. Like, that's not helping anyone. I don't, neither is the easy option. And all that should be the focus is the baby and the mum being safe.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And, I was there was a slight kind of fear in me, I guess, going with the second. And, because I was absolutely fine after the first one, in terms of my recovery. I did Glastonbury 8 days after having Rudy, did the TV coverage, and that was more. I mean, that was me trying to prove a point to myself, I think, more than anything.
But did you feel fine doing that? Yeah,
I felt absolutely. I mean, it was definitely. I definitely kind of came out of the other side of that going, what was that? Because I was, I remember saying to Sally, my producer, when we were watching a performance, and I was like, Sally, how long are we on this? She's like, 12 minutes. I was like, I'll be back in 10. Kind of waddling off to like a porta cabin to Express. to put the milk in a little fridge that we'd bought at Argos on the way there. So then I could take it back to the little B&B to give to my mum so she could then feed him my milk when I went back the next day. It's crazy. But, we took him down there and my mum came down and we did it. Tom played. And I remember when we got down there actually on that Friday or the Thursday, and we'd packed the car up. I mean, they're tiny, they hardly need anything. As long as they've got a cuddle, a clean nappy and some milk, they're fine. But we had, the car, you could not see out the back window. There was so much stuff.
I used to write a checklist before I went anywhere, and I'd be writing it 2 weeks before just to make sure I didn't leave anything behind. All that stuff.
Insane. I know. And he cried the whole way down from London to Glastonbury. And so it was kind of like, this is going to be all right. And Tom, bless him, had to pretty much get us in the room, put all the stuff in the room. My mum arrived and he had to go and do a warm-up show in Frome. And I remember him just before he left, kind of just literally coming across to the bed and whilst I was feeding Rude and going, holding my hand going, we did the right thing, babe. It's going to be all right. I promise you it's going to be all right. And he was right. I look back on it and I go, it's pretty amazing we can tell Rudy that story, It's like, but yeah. But with Spike, sorry, I was saying Spike, I was slightly, it was a different experience because Rudy was 4 and I kind of felt like I had to kind of make a bit of a fuss of him.
Yeah.
And I tried to do too much. So I tried to be normal mum as well as trying to recover from a C-section. And so it was much harder the second time.
So funny, I can literally remember a friend of mine doing exactly the same thing. And, when you pick your child up and spin them round by their arms, she did that, even though she'd just given birth to the second. And it is that you just want them to know that you still love them. They're still so important.
Nothing's going to be different.
Yeah. And afterwards, it was kind of that thing of, I just shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was kind of silly, and I struggled a bit actually, just in terms of the pain more than anything, and I'm really rubbish at asking for help and sort of, saying that things aren't great. So, but it was pretty evident, I think, for everybody around me that I was having a bit of a hard time.
It's hard though. I think. For me, it was especially the first. It's that thing, if you want everyone that comes over to kind of go, oh, she's so good. But really, you just need to sit down and do nothing.
Yeah. And I'm really bad at that. Always have been. It's because I grew up in this hotel.
Yeah.
And it was always, we were always working. Everybody had to do. So that's kind of the work ethic thing is like, I'm so bad at sitting down.
Yeah.
So bad. But we were really lucky as well that we had Tom's mum and dad in Gloucestershire, and we'd kind of escape out there, and they would just kind of scoop the boys up and put me on the sofa and kind of, just kind of take a bit of the pressure off. I remember with Rudy, actually, my mum, this is amazingly, I love how instinctive mums can be, even when you're an adult. And I remember Tom had gone off on tour. Rudy must have been, maybe even just a couple of months old. And she called me, and she still lives in Scotland. And she called me. I spoke to her and my dad. And I was just having a bit of a rubbish time. I was just finding it all a bit stressful. I was on my own. As I said, I'm really bad at asking for help. So I was just, kind of, oh, I'm okay, you can do this kind of thing. And then, bless her, she put the phone down. Got on the first flight she could down from Scotland, and within like 5 hours my front doorbell went, and it was my mum. She just walked up, and I just burst out into tears, and it was amazing.
Makes me want to cry.
She just knew that I needed a bit of help, and I needed my mum, you know, and so she was just there, and oh my God, it was the best feeling ever. So for anybody listening who's scared to ask for help, please just ask for help. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right to ask for help.
And it's so normal. I think becoming a mum is so overwhelming. And I can remember having Buzz and just, I would say I'm, in friendship groups, I've always been the most maternal one. I'm always the one looking after everyone. Yeah. And then when he came along, I was suddenly like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not maternal. I've been fooling myself the whole time, and you just feeling like you're completely inept. And And that thing of there's so much pressure on everything, single part, whether it's the bond, whether it's breastfeeding, whatever it is, there's so much pressure. And I can remember saying to my dad really early on, I don't know if he loves me. And he was like,
Oh.
Giovanna, of course he loves you. You're everything to him. You mustn't think that. And you're like, oh, yeah, that you're so right. But it is that thing of, I think we all think that motherhood looks a certain way. And
Absolutely.
actually, it's far messier. And the emotions are up and down. And, everyone, when you see people on TV, everyone's answer to, what do you think of motherhood? How is it going? Amazing. It's amazing. That's all I ever saw.
Yeah.
It's because you don't get the time to say, it's amazing, but, and then expand on it and then go, but I am so lucky. It is also hard though. And sometimes I'm regularly crying in the cupboard or in the bathroom or feeling like I just can't do it. It's messy.
It is messy. And I think that's kind of, and I think that there can be real stigma attached to people being honest about it as well, in terms of there's, and I think that in the same way that we have we're getting to that place with the conversation around mental health and about how, acceptable it is to be able to talk about your mental health. I think around, postnatal depression and things like that. I never saw a doctor or anything, but I definitely think I had some kind of hormonal, imbalance and just kind of being able to cope with everything. Because I think that one of the things that really accentuates all that is the sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And I know that people almost kind of make a bit of a joke about it. Are you ready for the sleepless nights kind of thing? But it's weird because I think as human beings, we have this reflex action where we suppress things. So you may be the most open-minded person, you may be the most open communicator, but there are certain emotions that you might feel it's not the right time to express that, so you suppress it. And I think that the sleep deprivation kind of eliminates all that ability to suppress things. So you've got all this stuff kind of swirling around that has nowhere to kind of to lie or to be positioned sort of things. So it can really, really mess with you, I think. I think that's a massive factor in a lot of that. I mean, I even know like with when I was doing like a breakfast show and how that kind of, I could tell how it affected my mood.
Yeah.
The sleep thing. I think it's got a massive. So I just wish there was a I don't know, a different line of conversation about about postnatal emotions or postnatal mental health states rather than postnatal depression. That word in itself, I think, carries so much stigma with it, carries so much kind of, I don't know, kind of assumption from people that I think by it being labelled that, it's kind of makes a lot of women scared to admit that there's, they need to speak to someone or there's something not quite right.
I can remember meeting someone who she said that a health visitor just kept asking her, are you okay? And she was like, it's like she just wanted me to admit that there was something wrong. It's like, but that's really hard, isn't it? Because if she didn't probe, that's how people get missed. And we all know that I don't know how other people felt when health visitors and midwives came over, but I felt like I had to perform being the best mum ever.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I didn't know that if I showed anything else that they weren't going to take my baby away.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember even going to so in the space of like, I think, wow, he must have been a year, Spike. So within the space of a year, I'd had him at A&E 3 or 4 times. A couple of times was because of really high temperatures. We lived right by the Royal Free, so it was a case of phoning the doctor and they go, okay, if his temperature's this, get him straight in. And it was, how sometimes kids have their thing that's their sort of weakness. If it's like an ear infection, you get that all the time. With Spike for the first year, it was kind of, he had really high temperatures. So I had him at the Royal Free maybe 3 times. And they were amazing and they were so attentive and they were so helpful and they calmed you down. It's like, don't worry, you're in the right place. And then I remember he must have just turned 1 because he was just about walking or maybe just before one. And he, standing up in his cot and doing that bouncy thing that they do. And he just toppled out of his cot and he hurt his arm.
Yeah.
So I was just like, every time he tried to put weight on it, he'd sort of, he'd cry. And I was like, I'm going to go and take him because he's definitely done something to it. He can move it, but he's done something. And so I remember going up to the referee again, and it was a very different experience. It was because it was, and quite rightly so, because there was a child coming in that had a physical injury and stuff. But, oh my God, I felt like I was being interrogated, in terms of, how high was the cot? And I'm like, I don't know. It's always, and most of these questions that they were asking, I couldn't answer because I was in a state of shock myself because my little boy was in pain, sort of thing. But that was a slightly terrifying experience, and the difference in the way that the line of questioning, the way that you talk to you, and that was almost like that kind of the health visitor coming round, but multiplied.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because kids do just hurt themselves.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, they've just, even now he's 7, and the way he sort of uses the living room is like an assault course. It's like,
I'm so glad it's not just mine.
Please. Please. You just see the coffee table and you're like, oh my God, so close. Please stop.
We've taken our coffee table out because actually the night before I had the third boy, Max, I was just taking them up to bed. I literally cleaned up. I could feel that I'd had a sweep that day and I thought, well, it might be happening. So grandparents might be coming over, best clean. And the boys had just started that phase of like jumping on sofas. Anyway, we were literally 5 seconds from going upstairs. And Buddy had got up on the sofa and his foot had just slipped. He came crashing down on the corner of the coffee table, his head completely split open. And it was a case of quick, grab him. You know when you're almost too scared to look because you know it's bad, like and yeah, it was literally like a wound, like a bullet wound, but it, right in his head. And we just grabbed him and took him right round to the hospital. And literally my contraction started in the hospital while he was being tended. And really, it was weird because it was almost like that smell of blood, this is quite graphic, reminded me of them as newborns. Really weirdly. And I don't know whether that was an extra rush of hormones for me that just kind of kickstarted things further. But since that moment, I am really bad with coffee tables. So our coffee table is still in our bedroom. It's far too big to be in our bedroom. And every now and then I'm like, come on, there's 6, 4 and 2, almost 7, 5 and 2. Can it go downstairs yet? I'm just like, I don't think I can. Because Buzz, like the 6-year-old, they will jump from sofa to sofa still, no matter what is in the way.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of, and they just, even when you're out for a walk and they'll just find something that's high or sharp or loose to kind of, oh my God, it's just like, it's the heart palpitations. It's like, guys, I've got a dicky heart already, please. Oh my God. How's homeschooling going for you?
First lockdown.
If ever there was a word, sound, just a sound.
We only had one child. So Buzz was in year 1 for the first lockdown. And now we've got one in reception and one in year 2. I mean, do you know what? It is what it is. It's interesting knowing that, feeling like everyone's doing it. This time they've got more live lessons. Yeah. So it's nice for them to be able to see their friends, see that everyone's doing the same thing. Yeah. It's just different in winter, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's really funny because Spike, he's a real joker and he really misses kind of, being in the class and telling jokes and all that kind of stuff. And but he does this thing where he's in the live classes where he's constantly changing his background in his Zoom classes. And every time I kind of just go in to check, I can hear like his teacher going, Spike, could you just put your background back to normal so you're not distracting the rest of the class? And it's like, oh God. I'm in space. I'm a dinosaur. It's like, but I love it. It's like, it is kind of his way, I guess, of trying to, play with his imagination. But it's funny.
How are the boys doing in terms of not seeing their mates and stuff?
They're all right, you know. I mean, we got this dog. We got our dog River, bless him, and that's been an amazing distraction for them. You know, making friends with him and forming their own relationships with him. The boys have been doing, you know, we only moved here and then within 3 months we were in the first lockdown. So they didn't have that
Right.
much time to really make, you know, lots of friends. But Spike made, I mean, he's like a whirlwind. And it's harder for older kids, I think, you know, in terms of most of the kids have been through the whole school together. So Rudy arrived when he was 11 but he made some really lovely mates quite quickly, and Spike as well. And they've been doing online, you know, gaming and stuff on Roblox and things like that. And Rudy's had some really lovely times with some of his London friends. And then one of his very lovely friends, they actually moved back to Australia, I think after the first lockdown. They're just in Adelaide. And so Louis and Rudy kind of have this once a week kind of sort of chat whilst they're playing, and it's kind of nighttime for Louis and first thing in the morning at the weekend for Rudy. And it's really heartwarming to hear them have these little conversations. And they don't talk about COVID, they don't talk about the lockdown. They kind of talk about, and weirdly I think, you know, as much as I hate how much time they want to spend on a screen and play games and stuff, these worlds that they're in are escape for them.
Yeah.
And so Rudy's really into Minecraft, so he's building these worlds. He's using his imagination to create these worlds that him and his friend can go and explore in together. So I like that side of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of really nice to sort of see them both anyway have a bit of a connection with other kids via technology. But it's Spike's.
We went a bit wrong with the via technology thing because our kids haven't, well, to be honest, they've not really spoken about their friends that much. And the other day, it turns out that Teams was being used for something other than their classes. So the teacher was sort of saying, you know, you can't set up other things. It has to be just school. And so she used Buzz as an example. She was like, Buzz, say you bought a new Lego game or, you know, got a new set and you wanted to show Levi your set. If instead of doing Teams, how might you show him? And Buzz's reaction was, I'd wait until we came back to school and then I'd tell him then. And the teacher was like, oh, you could. And I heard that. I was like, oh my gosh, we haven't done FaceTime. We haven't done calls or anything with any of their mates because they've not told us. I haven't felt like they've been wanting it or needing it.
Yeah. Well, they've got each other as well. And it's kind of, you know, I don't know, my two, there's 4 years between them, and they have moments where it's beautiful, you know, with them. And then it's moments where it's like literally trying to hold them apart sort of thing.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's been really interesting watching their relationship. And I really hope that this experience, I don't know, it kind of cements the good side of their, you know, the siblings. In terms of they can look back and remember what they went through together, you know, and how they, you know, there wasn't really anybody else around.
We've started doing this thing on a Saturday night where they stay up a little bit later, only to watch The Masked Singer or whatever is on, whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah.
And we get a takeaway with them and watch a bit of telly.
Brilliant.
And it is literally the best thing ever. It's literally like we are hanging out with these little humans that we made.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like it.
They are amazing sometimes, some of the things they come out with or the way they react to things. Yeah, it's really funny that someone said to me the other day, because since we left London, I was like, oh, did the boys miss much about London? I was like, yeah, no, they miss friends, you know, and I was like, they miss Deliveroo. And
Fair point.
all we can get delivered here is like Domino's. Spike's like that 5 times a week going, can we have Domino's tonight? No, mate. Can we have Domino's tonight? No.
Was it hard? That must have been a hard decision to move them from London to up north.
Well, so we're out in Gloucestershire, so we're sort of 2 hours west of London, but it's where Tom's mum and dad are. So it's where their grandma and granddad are. So we spent so much time out here anyway. They knew it. You know, there was a skate park down the road, you know, that they would go to with their scooters. And so there was things that they knew about it, and they all, you know, it was a fun place to come. So when we talked to them about it, they were really up for it. And, you know, prior to lockdown, we moved. They had mates come and stay. One of Rudy's friends came down and they did like a little sailing course up the road. And so I kind of like, but one thing that I did notice quite quickly with them being here in the school and stuff was like, I felt like we were helping them preserve their childhood a little bit.
Yeah. In terms of motherhood, 'cause we're talking about Rudy, and you kind of, I think when you first become a mum, you can kind of lose yourself a little bit. And I think it takes a while for yourself to come back. And for me, I feel like I get glimpses of it, and it kind of disappears again. And that for me, castle life was definitely like, oh, this is who I am.
Yeah.
How have you found that, kind of losing yourself in it, bringing yourself back? And also because I don't think you ever go back to what you were before, because you can't go through this monumental thing called motherhood and come out the same. Because if you do, for me, I always think that someone's a bit of a twerp if someone massive doesn't change someone, you know.
Yeah, and I think that it's finding that common ground. You know, I remember Tom and I having a conversation about it, of kind of like just be the sheer panic and fear of kind of having this little thing arrive, and how is it going to change our lives, and what's going to change about our lives. And one of the things that we said was like, well, look, the first thing is that he's coming into our lives, so we have to make him part of that. You know, we have to embrace what we do and try and bring him into that, rather than him dictate what we can and can't do in a way. And so that was taking him onto Australia. That was all that kind of stuff. But I think for me personally, I definitely had problems with kind of identity and who I was, but more a case of what other people's expectations or ideas of me were. You know, I was at Radio 1, and I kind of had this weird thing where it's like, well, I have a kid, I'm just not going to be on Radio 1 anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, and there was part of that was kind of true, but not really. And I just felt like that like the Glastonbury thing was me proving a point in a way. Do you know what I mean? I remember because I was having the C-section, we knew when we were having him. And I remember Mark Cooper and Alison Howe saying, okay, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes, I am. And they were like, just to let you know, it is absolutely fine at any point if you decide you don't want to do this. Of course, we want you to be there, but you're having a baby 8 weeks, 8 days before.
Months, weeks, days.
And it was almost, I think, that and a number of other things were me kind of trying to prove a point, going, oh yeah, I'm having a baby. Yes, I am, but it's not changing me. And it took me a little while to get the balance right of not being, not being kind of, ashamed's not the right word at all, not being fearful that by becoming a mum was going to make me someone that I didn't want to be, if that makes sense. Or it was going to take away part of me. And that's not true at all, because I think it just highlighted all the good bits, and it brought out all the good bits, and it brought out new bits. And it made me kind of get rid of stuff, and it made me prioritize things in a different way. And I think that that's something that I'm really grateful for of becoming a mum, is that it just made me look at my life a bit clearer, and just sort of make choices for the right reasons.
Yeah. Very true. I wrote a series of letters last year that are all around motherhood. Some to Tom, some to the boys, some to different body parts, some to other people. If you could write a letter on motherhood, who would it be to, and what would it say?
Oh, that's really interesting. Do you know who I would write it to? Is my nan that I never met. she died in childbirth, and she never got to fully experience motherhood past the age of her son being 3.
Right.
And so I would write to her about my dad and the type of man that he became and the type of father that he was to me. And then I would also tell her about her husband, my granddad, and about the love that the unconditional lifetime love that he held for her, that I felt I got a little bit of.
Yeah.
And, I was with him when he died, and he died so peacefully. And I know that it was because he knew he was going to her.
Mm.
And so I just like to tell her about all the stuff that she missed.
Yeah.
And about her great-grandchildren and her grandchildren. And just tell her about all the stuff that she missed out on, but that she was ever present as well through the stories that I heard about her, through the pictures that I saw about her, and how she was never forgotten.
It's incredible and so beautiful that she was clearly such a big part of everyone's life still.
Yeah.
Have you had the death chat with your kids?
Yeah, I mean, we lost a really close, she wasn't a relative, she was almost like an adopted nan. She would have been 100 yesterday.
Oh.
And we lost her just before Christmas. And the boys, they spent so much time with her growing up, and when we were up in Scotland. And so it's the first person for them that's died. And so I had the conversation with them about it, but they kind of didn't really. It's weird, they didn't go into it. They we had a conversation. They were really upset, obviously, and we celebrated her birthday yesterday, and I don't know. I think because she was old as well, they knew that she'd had an amazing life, and they knew that she'd lived every day to its full potential. And they didn't seem scared by it, which is kind of, I guess, really healthy.
How have you managed the juggle between work and family life? I mean, I guess now it's that weird thing of you're literally passing the baton between you and Tom in the same way that we are. But is it a thing that you're constantly working on?
Yeah, totally. It's teamwork. And he's been amazing because it's been crazy busy for me the last couple of weeks. And now it's really crazy busy for him because he's done this record with Andy Burroughs. It's their second album they've done together. And they did a Christmas one 10 years ago. And they've done this really beautiful new record. And so they're promoting that at the minute. They've got sessions. And so Andy does a test and comes round so they can record here, do sessions and things like that. I had to film them. I bought a Steadicam from my iPhone, filmed a session for James Corden's Late Late Show. New skills you learn in lockdown. But it's kind of, it's teamwork. It's about, right, what have you got to do and what have you got to do? So it's kind of, every day is so different. It's really hard to plan stuff because the kids are kind of all encompassing really within the school day.
Yeah.
And it's tricky. That's the thing I think I've found the hardest. And also weirdly, part of the reason of moving out here was to kind of separate work and home life a bit more.
That's not worked.
3 months later, literally, I'm just going upstairs to work. And so it's that thing. And, and I've had so many occasions where I've been doing, live Q&As or whatever. And I can see Spike out the corner of my eye naked as he's just come out the shower. And it's like, stay, kind of telepathically going, stay there, do not come into shot.
I always get, Mum, can I have a snack? Mum,
Oh my
Mum.
God.
Yes.
That's been the hardest thing of just sort of finding the right, the time to fit everything in. And
Yeah. So pre-COVID times, pre-lockdown times, and you're already in this. So I want to know, is there a point when they go to school that is guilt-free time? Because I want to know, when they start going to school, I feel like I'm going to get all my work done. I'm going to start going to bed at 10 o'clock at night and getting a good 8 hours. I'm not going to be trying to cram everything in the brief hours that I have at nighttime. So is there an element of it easing off a little bit when,
Hell yeah.
Really good.
I mean, literally, as soon as they walk in those school gates, it's like, but it is that thing where I try and as much as I can do everything in that time then that they're at school, so that when they do finish school, then it's our time.
Yeah.
Not always the case, not always possible, but where possible, that's kind of what I try and strive for. And also, they're so tired by the end of the day as well that their needs for you are that lovely side of being a mom and a dad, of kind of like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I need a hug. It's that proper like just nurturing sort of side of it. Whereas at the minute you're everything to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh man, I mean, yeah, for those like little kind of windows that we've had of them being back at school, yeah, I mean, I started wild swimming, been swimming in lakes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I remember doing exercise. I actually yesterday.
I remember doing exercise.
Yeah, that wasn't a walk or a bike ride. Yesterday I was like, I have to do some kind of like stretch or yoga because I'm like a coiled spring.
Yeah.
So I did like 2 little 20-minute things yesterday morning whilst they were all just chilling out. And then this woman, Adriana, I don't know, she says yoga with Adriana.
She is amazing,
isn't she?
Yes, yeah.
And so I saw her 30-day thing. I went, do you know what? I'm going to do that. It doesn't matter what time of the day I do it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So today I started it. I did day 1 and I did it about 4:30. So I'd got all dinner prepped. The kids were having some like non-school device time. Tom was in his studio. The dog was, I thought, asleep, and I was in the kitchen with my mat out. And then the dog wakes up and he's like, I'm trying to do like downward dog, and he's in between my legs, and then he just lies on the mat. But I did it. I did the first day, so that's my thing. Is I'm going to try whatever time I can get it done, even if it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to see this through for the whole of February and a couple of days into March and do this 30-day thing, because even from like today and yesterday, I feel so much better for it. Just I feel like I'm not hunched, and I feel a bit more open and a bit taller and just a bit more kind of like can breathe a bit better as well.
Yeah. So for the majority of last year, I felt like my body had completely been battered. And I think it is that thing, it's that physical thing of parenting 24/7.
Yeah.
And it's, I realised that I don't sit down at all in the day. Like, you're constantly doing and ferrying or whatever else. And, it's no wonder that we all feel a bit battered and bruised because we don't stop.
I think I've forgotten to breathe. It was so weird. Like this, this first day of this thing, a lot of it was about connecting with your breath. And she was like, okay, and weirdly, actually, no, before that, we starting doing these meditations with Spike. There was like a couple of them, okay, before we start, let's do 3 big breaths. And I was like, I can't remember the last time I took a deep breath or like actually, properly inhaled and exhaled. And even that's it's crazy. But it's almost kind of like, just because there's so much going on, it's and God, the amount of food. I don't know if your lot are just kind of, how much food can small people consume in a day? I just don't want to have to ask that question, what do you want for lunch, for a while? Or, oh my God, what do you want for breakfast? It's just like, I'm so bored of making decisions as well about meals.
My sister has started setting alarms, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon for snack times. Because Summer Rae otherwise will just have snacks constantly. It's all she asks for. It's like, no, you wouldn't have this at school, so you're not having it here.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Rudy started baking, which has been quite nice as well.
Well, that's
They love
nice.
Bake Off and stuff. And they're actually, the school are having a Bake Off on Wednesday, which is quite nice. They're giving the year eights a day off of lessons and they're doing Bake Off.
Ah.
So he makes an amazing lemon curd. So he wants to make a lemon meringue tart. So it's quite nice because then it's kind of, I've got to that point as well where I just like let him do it.
Yeah.
So he kind of knows where everything is, if I'm there, if he doesn't, or if he needs help. But it's kind of like, no, on you go. You can, there's the recipe. Off you go.
See,
And
I
that's
can't
kind
wait
of
to get
really
to this
nice.
stage when my kids bake for me.
I've got the recipe for crepes up on the blackboard in the kitchen because they wanted that put up there so they could make them themselves.
Amazing.
That's quite nice.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to them getting to these ages, Edith.
Yeah, I mean, it's the far and few days that it actually happens, but you know, the incentive's there. The details are there for them. It's like, guys, remember that crepe recipe you asked me to put up on the board 3 months ago?
Our 4-year-old thinks he makes something called oinky pie, where he
Oh,
literally...
I'd like some of that.
Well, so he just gathers loads of different ingredients from the cupboard and makes
Amazing.
loads and loads of mess. And
I
then
used to
while he's
do
out
that.
the room, I quickly cook some pasta, put some cheese in it, and then put it in the oven. So it's basically macaroni cheese, but he thinks that he makes it.
That's the cutest thing ever. You have to release your own brand of macaroni cheese called Oinky,
Oinky pie.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Totally. That's amazing. I used to do that. I used to remember doing that in my mum's cupboard with like all these, and I remember being absolutely like gobsmacked by the smell of cloves.
Yeah.
Just going, what are these things? It's so strong. It's like Nana's perfume. It's like,
I mean, that's a good amount of time wasted in a cupboard as well. Like just smelling
Yeah.
all the herbs,
yeah.
touching everything.
That's maybe a good little way of passing the time, is kind of just blindfolding them and getting them to try and work out what herbs what.
I mean,
Smell
if
the
I don't do
herbs.
that tomorrow.
I've tried with all the healthy alternatives as well, like the Helmsley and Helmsmate equivalent of Nutella, and they know, they're like, there's no way that I'm not having the normal Nutella. My mum bought them the most ridiculously large tubs of Nutella, each with their names on it.
Oh.
Grandmas do that kind of thing, don't they? They get away with all that. It's like, how much chocolate can you give one child? It's like, oh my God.
I always find as well with nans and stuff, in the early days, it used to make me go, no, because we're doing this. Whereas now I'm kind of like, that's fine.
Yeah, whatever
Kinda
you want.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
totally.
weird transition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely watching that grandparent relationship. You know, I was talking about my granddad, but watching my kids with my mum and dad and Tom's mum and dad as well. It's lovely relationships.
Yeah.
Because that kind of responsibility is a different type of responsibility. And it's really lovely as well because my kids get very different things from the two different sets of grandparents. And so, yeah, it's really nice. It's lovely. I love watching it. I love them spending time together.
I wonder if being a grandparent is your chance to almost be the parent you wish you would have been. You know what I mean? Because you don't have all of the other
That's
stresses
interesting.
around it. So
Yeah.
you can literally just enjoy them.
Yeah, and I guess, well, mum and dad is an example of that because they were working so much. Do you know what I mean? There was so much that they didn't do with me as a kid and my brother, that, you know, now they're retired and they spend a lot of time with my nieces up in Scotland because they help childmind them. And they're amazing grandparents. But yeah, my mum does stuff with them that she never did with me.
Yeah.
And, you know, because she was working. And yeah, it's really interesting. Like almost like all the stuff she wanted to do, she's actually finally able to do.
Yeah. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Edith, we end each podcast episode. We end each episode with you finishing 3 sentences. It's very simple.
Okay.
Being a mum means.
Being a mum means I get to learn so much about the world and myself.
Since having children, I.
Since having children, I have learned to love in a way I didn't know was possible.
And I'm happy when?
I'm happy when I have a boy on each side of me. My boys, not just any boy. Snuggled in. And they just kind of can't get close enough that it's almost smothering, but it's the most wonderful feeling.
Lovely. Edith, thank you so much. It's been such a glorious chat. I've
so
absolutely loved it.
nice.
I honestly
Thank you
forgot we were
so
doing
much.
a podcast and some of that.
Bye, lovely. See you later. Bye, guys. See you.